mean, what do you say? I don't really know what to say. I have no idea what to say because I was talking to these gentlemen before, and the excitement is just crazy about what's going on now. This is the energy that the Democrats needed. So good evening, everyone. Welcome to Lemon Live at 5. We're live at 8 tonight, a little bit late. I'll be very transparent with you. I just flew back in from my honeymoon. I was in Europe, and I had a great time, and I rushed back to do this. Can you feel it? I told you guys this. Let me tell you. Before I introduce Terrance and Christopher, here's what I told you guys. When this happened on Monday, when it happened, was it on Sunday? I forget what night it was. And Sunday. I said, Sunday. I said, don't panic. If you go back and look at what I said, this could be really good. This is probably the best thing that could happen to the Democrats because now it's game on and there would be some energy around what's happening. And I was right. Okay. There has been a rush among people, among Black women, among Black men. I have to tell you, among members of the LGBTQ community, among white women now, to see who can outdo the one before them, right? So it was the Black women 2 nights ago, our sisters, as we say. It was the Black men last night. And then now white women are joining a call as well. 40,000 sisters, they broke Zoom. The brothers last night, as I understand, I think it was like 56 or 60, 53,000 people, Black men, trying to get on a call. And I was one of them. It was 3 a.m. where I was. Okay. So let me introduce these brothers who are here with me now. Lemon Live at 5. I'm so glad that all of you are here. Let me just tell you a little bit before I introduce them. It is exciting. There's electricity in the air. After 4 weeks of chaos and turmoil, the Democratic Party is now not only united behind Kamala Harris, but the base is energized in a way that I don't know that I have seen really since 2008. And yes, I know that is something, and I know about 2008 because listen, 2006 I came to CNN from Chicago, where Barack Obama was a state senator just across town from where I lived. So I'm so lucky to be joined by an incredible panel of people, of men, Black men. Terrance Woodbury is here. Hey, Terrance, good to see you, a Democratic pollster and the founding partner of HIT. Also with me, Professor Christopher Parker. He's a political scientist and a director of graduate studies at UC Santa Barbara. His research focuses on American politics, identity, race, and public opinion. And a little bit later on, one of the organizers of that call last night, Michael Blake, he's the CEO and founder of Atlas Strategy Group. He is also the vice chair of the Democratic National Committee. He is the former vice chair of the Democratic National Committee. He's going to join us in just a little bit to talk about how did that call come about? Why was it so successful? Why were men really spilling their hearts out in there, especially my brother, Bakari Sellers, my friend and former colleague. So gentlemen, thank you. How are you doing, Terrance?
Oh man, Don, I'm feeling the excitement, man. I'm riding the momentum. I was thrilled to be on the call yesterday with a lot of my brothers. I was grateful to my sister Jotega Edie for leading the Win with Black Women call, and for all the brothers that helped us organize yesterday. I hope Mike Blake gets to come on so I can express just how grateful I am to be a part of that, man.
Yeah, he'll be on. He should be on at the bottom of the hour in about 20 minutes. How are you doing, Professor Christopher Parker? Are you as excited as Terrance Woodbury and I and some 53 other Black men around the country?
I am over the moon. I knew Biden had no chance of winning, and I've said so publicly. So I am so happy to see this happen. I mean, we really needed this.
Yeah. You guys broke the internet last night. I should say we broke the internet last night because, again, I was on that call and my service was spotty because I was in Greece, and I got kicked off the call. And right after Bakari, I got kicked off the call. So here's what we're going to talk about, gentlemen, if you will. Obviously, the enthusiasm and the excitement around this. And if this is, because I'm hearing a lot of people, as you know, the pessimists are saying, oh, Kamala can't win. This election is over. I don't buy that. I don't believe that, especially after what's happened in the last couple of days, right? It took the Democratic Party all but maybe 4 hours to coalesce behind the vice president. We're going to talk about the vice president's path forward. What does the data say? That's what we're going to talk to Professor Christopher Parker about. And can Republicans run against Harris without being racist? That seems unlikely, especially since Republicans in Congress, leaders in Congress are telling the party members, hey, stop talking about Kamala Harris's race. Stop talking about her being a black woman or whatever. Stop being racist. They just can't help themselves. They're too close to it. They don't even see it. So longtime fans of the show know that I love to have a relatively gender balanced panel, but today I have an all male panel because of the particular reason of what happened last night. This is the specifics and the facts that my producers have gotten for me. Last night, some 53,000 black men joined a virtual conference call to fundraise for Kamala Harris's, Vice President Harris's presidential campaign. The event was hosted by Win with Black Men, a collective of organizers modeled after Win with Black Women, the activist group that held its own massive Zoom call to fundraise for Harris on Sunday. The virtual event raised $1.3 million in just 4 hours. The organizers say half of that will go to the Harris campaign, half will go to organizations that specialize in mobilizing black men to vote. Now, for all that breathless talk that I talked about, the media and the online folks about black men allegedly swinging towards Trump and Trump's favor for this election, Monday's meetup underscored the political reality here. There are many, many black men in America, like there are black women firmly in Harris's corner, and they are putting their money where their mouths are, adding to what's already been a massive fundraising haul for Harris in the first few days of her campaign. So here's my question. I want to know, you said that you have the data, right? I want to put the data up from Professor Christopher Parker. I want to put his data up to show, and there's a slide to show exactly what's happening and why he says, you said you have been saying for how long? Talk to me about your data and how you've been saying about Joe Biden.
I've been saying this forever. Like, nobody wanted to believe me. And basically what the argument was to the extent that the black vote is dispositive in a number of these swing states, that Joe Biden's numbers vis-a-vis 2020 have been down, both with respect to turnout and both with respect to vote share. And when I saw that, and my partner and I saw that, and we reported that, nobody believed us. But I've been saying this for a while. And that is why I've had no hesitation for saying, like, Joe Biden, as great of a president as he is, he had no chance of beating Trump, like zero.
If everything remains the same, here's your summary, okay, Professor? If everything remains the same, Biden loses. Okay, what did you mean by that? You mean if he did not get out of the race and stayed status quo? Is that what you meant?
No, what I meant by that is if none of the other numbers change, right, vis-a-vis the other groups in the coalition, like assuming that they remain constant and didn't change. And I know that's a huge assumption to make. So it was twofold. I meant that, and all we were looking at was the black vote, he loses. But also given, if nothing changed vis-a-vis the horse race, he was going to lose. So I meant that it was a twofold definition.
Yeah. Perhaps other coalition members' turnout increased Dem vote share. White women, where 43% only supported Biden in 2020, Trump won 55%, are the best bet. Talk to me. Yeah. What does that mean?
What I meant that if at the time, if Biden could get more of the women's vote share, then he had a chance, right? And I didn't go into the minutia, talk about other groups. I was just trying to look at the most obvious groups, and which is not to say that other groups couldn't better their performance or couldn't equal their performance from 2020. I was just looking at women at the time, and that made the most sense to me. So I'm not making a case that only, an increase in vote share for Biden among women would have helped. I'm just saying, like, the most obvious case was that.
Yeah. It's worth noting that Hillary Clinton bet her victory on white women as well. And there is a more reliable coalition to put together. And I think the vice president is going to help Democrats do that.
Terrance, can you hold that thought? Because I want to talk to you about that, because white women are organizing, right? I don't know if you're hearing about all of these events and seeing the memes and stuff all over social media. Let me finish up with the professor here. You said this may offset black turnout, Trump defections.
Yep. And what I meant by that is black folks staying home or Black folks defecting to Trump. And most of the early polls, that is to say, spring at least, had Black folks, Trump winning Black folks, upwards of 20%. Now, I hope I can use colorful language since we're on YouTube.
Yes,
but my partner and I always knew that was some bullshit, right? And we showed it because those other polls had very small samples of Black folks. We have over 2,000. And so that leads to more statistical reliability. And what we show in our poll, it was roughly around 14% that said that they were going to support Trump. Now, this poll was undertaken in March. We have another poll that we're going to put in the field here this week. And what's unique about our design is it's a longitudinal design. That means we're interviewing the same people over time so that we can detect change over time.
Nonetheless, Biden needs to make up ground in both support and turnout among Black voters to have any chance of winning much needed swing states. Professor?
Oh, that's a prima facie case. I mean, it says what it says, right? So he needs to make up ground in both support and turnout, meaning that one could have high Black turnout, but the vote share could be down, right? Or one could have a high vote share, relatively high vote share, but turnout could be down. And what I'm saying is, I've put a couple other slides in there, and what we show is that if you got to have both turnout and vis-a-vis where the numbers were at the time, both turnout and vote share at least meet the 2020 numbers, right? And they were not meeting the 2020 numbers. They were down across several swing states. And, I'm sure, Terrance runs his stuff too, and hopefully he's finding the same thing.
That's where I'm going now. So Terrance, this is data that you've seen here, that you've looked at. Does it confirm with the presser, your data, at least, what the professor is saying?
Yeah, look, we are seeing the exact same trends here, that Joe Biden was grossly underperforming with voters of color. Look, the the coalition that Kamala Harris is going to have to put together to win looks very different than Biden's coalition. She's not inheriting that coalition. She's going to have to build a different one. Joe Biden did exceptionally well amongst white seniors in particular. That's a large part of the American electorate.
White seniors, both Black and white.
White senior. Well, he did
seniors
very well
both white seniors. Okay, not Black and white.
He did extremely well with
okay.
Seniors. He did much better with older voters than most Democrats.
Yeah,
specifically white seniors, where Democrats often don't do well. Look, but he only won 81% of Black men's votes. That's in 2020. He won 81% of Black men's votes. Well, if Kamala Harris is not going to do as well as Joe Biden did with white seniors, which I suspect that she won't, she is going to have to make that up amongst the the more diverse electorate. And to the professor's point, look, just getting up to 88, 89% of a smaller pie, of a smaller share of the electorate doesn't solve the problem. And so that's why the excitement behind her is so important, because it's surging and hopefully increasing turnout, along with improving on what was just the 81% of Black men's votes from Joe Biden.
Yeah. So what has this done? I'm telling you, Democrats were crying in their soup. They were like, "Oh my gosh, what are we going to do? Oh my gosh, Kamala Harris, I don't know. Kamala Harris, I don't know. I don't know." There was all this hemming and hawing, and then almost within an instant, Terrance Woodbury, in an instant, things seemed to change, and the fortunes of the Democratic Party seems to have changed as well, especially if they keep this momentum. What happened?
Yeah, Don, look, we've seen in the most recent poll I've seen since Kamala Harris became the nominee was a morning consult poll where she was able to reduce the margin, where Joe Biden was trailing Donald Trump by 6 points. Kamala Harris is only trailing Donald Trump by 2 points. So she's closing that lead that Donald Trump had, and that's specifically because she's increased her margins amongst Black voters from a 39-point margin to a 54-point margin in just 2 days, a 15-point increase in 2 days. We still have a lot of work to do. We still have to reach some of the more pessimistic, cynical, frustrated, disengaged voters. But she's proving an aptitude to do that and to mobilize the grassroots that are going to be required to make it happen.
Did you see this new Ipsos poll that came out today?
I have not seen the Ipsos poll.
There's an Ipsos poll that came out today. Harris leads Trump 44 to 42% in the Ipsos poll. Now, this is a poll that was taken online. Vice President Kamala Harris opened up a marginal 2 percentage point lead over Republican Donald Trump after President Joe Biden ended his re-election campaign and passed the torch to her. That is a Reuters Ipsos poll that it found. It compares a marginal 2-point deficit Biden faced against Trump in last week's poll before his Sunday exit in the race. So here's the thing, though. So she has.
Wait, Don, let me say something. That's still within a margin of error. So they're effectively tied.
There's a 3%, right? I mean, there's the margin of error is what, 3 points, right? 3%.
So yeah, so they're effectively tied.
Yeah. They're effectively tied. But in this poll, if you put RFK Jr. in this poll, her lead gets larger, and it's outside of the margin of error.
You know, Don, this has been a problem with a lot of the public polling. Any poll that is doing that's presenting a forced choice of just two candidates is really over representing the support for both of those candidates. And that was more important when it was Biden and Trump on the ballot. The only thing less popular than Joe Biden and Donald Trump was the rematch of Joe Biden and Donald Trump. And that was forcing a lot of voters, especially young voters, to pursue alternatives. And so when you just include a forced choice of two candidates, you are omitting what I would suspect to be about 5 or 6% of voters that are going to vote third party. Now that may reduce. Kamala Harris is likely going to reduce that margin by consolidating more of the Democratic coalition. We know that that Donald Trump was winning 94% of his previous coalition. Joe Biden was only winning 83% of his previous coalition. Well, a lot of those previous Biden voters were telling us in polls that they were either undecided or voting third party, and that's exactly what we see Kamala Harris consolidating.
So let me
hey, Christopher, back off your mic a little bit. It's a little crackly. Sorry, you're a little close.
Okay, are we still getting the same thing?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just gonna have to get off these headphones.
Yeah.
I'll be right back.
Yeah.
But let me just say, while we get the professor back, Don, I am excited to see this movement in the polls in such a short amount of time. But all the polls that we've seen so far are national.
Yeah.
I don't believe in national polls during elections. There's 5 states that I want to start looking at, and the reason that's so important is because we're going to get to her path to victory. But I suspect that her path is going to look a little bit different than Joe Biden's. I suspect that she's going to open up an even larger lead or competitive margin in states like Georgia and North Carolina, where Black folks make up a larger part of the electorate.
Yeah.
Well,
go ahead, Christopher.
So yes, I think there's some merit to that claim, but I think that's also contingent on her picking the right running mate, right? If she picks Shapiro, that locks up Pennsylvania, and I see Bashir is no longer in it. Maybe Cooper gives her a shot at North Carolina and maybe Georgia, but I do think you're right. She's definitely going to close the gap.
Yeah, Marcella gives her a shot at Arizona. We're going to get to that, but let's talk about. I want to talk about this momentum. I want to talk about what we saw today, because I'm telling you, there's excitement. I've been getting calls from everybody saying, "Can you join us on this? Can you do that? We're putting together. We're mobilizing here." And I'm like, "What the is going on here? This is crazy." So I want to play a few clips. This is from Vice President Harris. This is a barn burner of a speech today in Wisconsin. The first clip has Harris talking about President Biden's legacy. Let's listen to it. Here it is.
So, Milwaukee, I want to start by saying a few words, and I could really speak at length, but a few words about our incredible President Joe Biden. It has truly been one of the greatest honors of my life to serve as Vice President to our President Joe Biden. Joe's legacy of accomplishment over his entire career and over the past 3.5 years is unmatched in modern history. In one term, think about it, in one term as president, he has already surpassed the legacy of most presidents who served 2 terms in office. And I know we are all deeply, deeply grateful for his continuing service to our nation. And it is my great honor to have Joe Biden's endorsement in this race.
So here's what I want to say. I'm glad she did that because I've been seeing, President Biden served this country well and served the American people well. And she is right. He's had one of the most successful presidencies in modern history. Today was the first day, the time that we saw him since he left the stage with COVID, since he was in Delaware and he went back to his family's home there. And we have some video of him today boarding Air Force One, but it's the first time we saw him. And I thought, he looked a little dejected. Here he is. We'll listen in because reporters are gonna throw him some questions.
Mr. President, how are you feeling? How are you feeling? How are you feeling?
Come talk to us.
Come on. How are you feeling since you dropped out of the race, sir?
How are you feeling about Harris's campaign?
Can Harris beat Trump? Can Harris beat Trump, Mr. President?
And then he goes on to ascend the
can Harris
stairs on
beat,
Air Force One.
Trump
He didn't
was-
take the reporters' questions, but he goes on to ascend the stairs there. And look, I think that he, to me, he looked a little tired. He's looking a little, hey, and just, you know what I'm saying. So, but the difference in energy, and I'm glad that she did mention it because he has done a wonderful job. And I think people should be, thankful for him and should give him that respect. Christopher, am I wrong?
Yeah, no, I think, we definitely owe him a debt of gratitude for sure. I mean, like he literally saved us from autocracy, but let's circle back and let's give some credit to Black women too.
Yeah.
Right. You want to elaborate on that? I'll listen.
Yeah.
I actually want to say one thing about the president.
Hang on one second. I'm just going to say, no ma'am says in our chat, we talked to our subscribers here, guys, just so you know. No ma'am in the chat says he's mourning. They say he's mourning, but go on. Sorry. Because he just got COVID, maybe, says Dan Sabo, but he's a broken man, says Head Garb. I don't know. Go ahead, Terrance. What do you think?
Look, I agree. We owe Joe Biden a great deal of gratitude. I think he has been one of the most consequential, arguably the most consequential president of my lifetime, specifically in the policies and personnel that he has passed to advance communities of color. I think he served Barack Obama diligently. There are, as a pollster and a data guy, there are questions about whether or not Barack Obama would have been able to win that race without Joe Biden on the ticket. I like to remind folks that in a heated primary with Hillary Clinton, where he had already secured the nomination, Barack Obama lost Pennsylvania to Hillary Clinton, right? Scranton Joe moved to Pennsylvania as the vice presidential nominee, just like I suspect that he's about to do on behalf of Kamala Harris, move to Pennsylvania and speak to the folks that he understands the best. But because of Joe Biden, along with serving the President Barack Obama loyally, he appointed the first Black woman to the Supreme Court, along with 100 other Black women to the Supreme Court. And he just installed a Black woman as helped install a Black woman as the nominee. And I'm sure he's going to work diligently to get her elected. But the policies that he's passed are transformative, from replacing every lead pipe in America to banning no-knock warrants and chokeholds. This is consequential, and she has an opportunity to continue that progress. But most important during an election season, she has an opportunity to tell the story of that progress, and that's what I don't think that Joe Biden was up to as president.
So listen, I was a little worried that Joe Biden wouldn't endorse his vice president. I was a little bit concerned about the opposition of white men, right? And I said, well, maybe perhaps if he really wanted to make history, what he would do is step down so that Kamala Harris could become vice president. And then I got a sea of no's from Black women saying no, or and members of the Democratic Party saying no, we wanted to earn it. We wanted to serve 2 terms. So, okay, fine. That was my opinion. No big deal. We'll move on. But I do have to say, this is what people are telling me. Don, I'm so glad that you're not on cable news anymore, so I can tell you this. We're tired of hearing about Donald Trump. We're tired of hearing about MAGA. They over-index on MAGA. Everyone wants to know how the MAGA coalition feels. We want to hear how those people feel. They are the unheard. He said, we have heard more from MAGA and Donald Trump, even during Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's first administration, than they heard from themselves, the people, especially the women who helped to propel Joe Biden into office. They're tired of hearing about MAGA. They're tired of hearing about Donald Trump. They want their voices heard this time. And Christopher, that's what I'm hearing from people now. Finally, they feel like, finally, it's our turn. Am I feeling, is that a wrong feeling to have?
So let me say this. Like, you know, I wrote a book on the Tea Party movement a few years back, and I predicted that Trump was going to win in 2016.
I did too, by the way.
Are you? Well, we were real lonely out there then, Don.
Yes, we were.
I'm
lost some friends.
I'm curious about y'all's predictions this time. We can come around to that.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking Kamala's going to win. Like, I really think she has a really good shot at winning, but we cannot. It'd be a fool's errand to underestimate the power of what motivates these reactionary movements, not only here in the United States, but elsewhere. And it's the same thing that motivates all of them. So I really think we need to get a better understanding of that. And I don't think we can listen to that enough. Yes, we need to hear everybody else's voices, but I think it would be a fool's errand to underestimate them once again.
Oh, absolutely. I agree 100%. I think that's what happened last time. And the reason that I said that I predicted it is because I would open the newspaper. And I said in 2016, Donald Trump would be on the cover of the newspaper. Then he'd be on the cover of the real estate section. Then he'd be on the cover of the business section. Then he'd be on the cover of the editorial section. And I was like, wait, what is going on here? Why isn't Hillary Clinton owning this territory? And so that's what needs to happen this time. And that's why the Honorable Michael Blake is here to make sure that that happens. That's why he was one of the people who did that call last night that we were all on. Listen, Michael Blake, I was in Greece last night. It was 3 a.m. and I joined that call and I heard everyone speak. And when it got to the end of my brother Bakari Sellers, what he said, and I got kicked off the call, and I was like, you know what? I made room for one more person. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for doing what you're doing. We appreciate you being here. We've got Terrance Woodbury with us. We have Professor Christopher Parker with us as well. We appreciate you. So
good to see you, brothers. Good to see you.
Good to see you. So tell me about that call. Tell me about what was that? Talk to us about what that was like, because it was a moment for everybody who's on this panel and for 53,000 other Black men around this country.
53,862. Which I'm gonna say, and obviously the ancestors would know best. I think that last night was the largest Black men mobilization that we've ever seen in one space online digitally. Of course, the Million Man March is a different dynamic itself, right? But for what we saw yesterday, brothers are ready to go. You know, Don, you win for most dedicated. I thought Garland Gilchrist won because he joined us from London last night, but you joined from Greece. And
7 hours ahead. I was 7 hours ahead of you guys.
So you won on that. I just landed in New York. I was in Nashville with many of the Black trial lawyers. But for yesterday, I think many of us are tired of the narrative, and good to see my brothers Christopher and of course Terrance I just saw last weekend. But I think we're tired of folks saying that Black men won't show up, you know, and so we were like, let's set the tone right out the gate, that we're serious here, you know, and all love to my sisters. The sisters had 44,000. We had more than them. It's one of those rare moments where immediately we demonstrated at organizing. And Don, it's important for us to recognize when with Black women have been rocking on weekly calls for months. What happened last night was we put it out essentially at 2:00 Eastern. Like, brothers are ready to go, and it's important for us to set the tone early, because for any mobilization itself, you cannot allow, and I appreciate y'all just saying about Trump in 2016, we cannot allow the negative narrative to jump off about the vice president. We're going to be like, no, let's make sure there's a positive tone right out the gate, and that brothers are going to be aligned and ready to go. And so shout out to Quentin James at Collective and Vote to Live. Shout out to Khalil Thompson, Women, Black Men. Of course, Bakari was brilliant as always. And for anyone who didn't see it, he talked about how the vice president called him during his darkest hours when he was afraid of his daughter potentially dying. We're ready to go to demonstrate that brothers are going to be at the table for the next 105 days.
Yeah, look, I wasn't on the calls with him, but I remember those moments with Bakari. But I got to tell you, you were reading our minds. We were just talking about what you said, that you can't allow, the narrative to be stolen. And especially the false narrative to come out regarding, this woman and her accomplishments. Listen, here's a deal. Normally we have, up maybe a couple 100,000 people, 100,000 people watching, right? There were almost 400,000 people, or 300 to 400,000 people who watched yesterday when I did this show, my show from Greece on Black women. Mm-hmm. And that's how I know something is happening. Mm-hmm. Honorable Michael Blake, that's how I know something has happened. I'm getting calls. I got a call from Afonso David as soon as I got off the plane saying, we're organizing something for the LGBTQ people around the country. Can you be on a call with me on Thursday? Right? There's a call from Shannon, a white woman, said, hey, how do you guys, you heard what Black women said. They essentially called out to us. And so now white women need to come forward and form a coalition. Mm-hmm. Is this real? Now I know it's real for us, but I mean,
it's real.
Is it real even for white women, for members of the LGBTQ community? And I think Black men, I think we need to challenge white men now. I think we need to get white men on board with this.
Yeah, let me convey how real it is, and of course, Terrance is a researcher, so he can appreciate them. Both researchers. So from a data perspective of why the last 48 hours is so critical, there were 206 counties that went for Barack Obama twice that then went for Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. So it's important for us to make sure we understand that, like, there's a desire for people to get around something that they're excited about. Mm-hmm. And what we now have with the vice president is a Black Jamaican South Asian woman who is one of the most qualified vice presidents ever when you look at her total trajectory. Mm-hmm. And so, Don, when I got off last night, and that's about, after midnight Eastern, one of the first calls I got was from one of the sisters that's organizing the South Asian for Kamala Harris effort.
Wow.
Shout out to Shannon Watts. I saw that the white women for Kamala Harris, they've now posted it. They're doing, I think it's tomorrow night. Latinas for Harris is happening right now. I saw the LGBT movement is going to be happening. I think that's on Thursday. That's like right. This is something that's real. And it's important that it's not just that folks are saying, we can't stand Trump. Boom. It's that people are like, yo, I'm excited about this. Like I see something here. I'm feeling this. And at the end of the day, people vote primarily because they're excited or they're afraid.
Yep.
And it's we can't ignore the numbers of what we've seen the last few days. Go ahead, Chris.
So let me jump in. Thank you so much, Mike. And he's totally right. I mean, so people voted like the last election cycle, and maybe Terrance, you saw the same thing. Don't get me wrong. People like Biden, but they were voting primarily against Trump, right? This time, these folks are voting for Harris, for her, right? And these are different things, right? So I'm just saying, like, what Blake just said is completely true. And I'm glad Terrance co-signed on it because I see it in the data all day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And this is going to come down to 7 states, right? This is 7 battleground states. There's no coincidence why the names that are coming out for her VP considerations come from those places, right? So Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. We won last time because folks were mobilized. We lost in 16 because they weren't, right? This is going to be North Carolina, Georgia in the Southeast, which I actually think North Carolina is going to be this year's Georgia. I've been saying that for a while. and then Arizona, Nevada, in which, like, I think fundamentally you look at these states, these 7 states, and you have a woman of color who has the background that she does from those states. Oh, Donald Trump and JD Vance should be terrified right now.
I think they are. I mean, they're trying to impeach the woman today. I said, look, y'all are trying to impeach this woman. It would be easier and less embarrassing. Just go out and buy a sports car, and y'all know what I'm talking about. If you're trying to, it would be a lot cheaper, a lot easier. Because I mean, come on, it's ridiculous, guys. We all see what it is. And I'm talking, you know, it's a tiny problem. But look, I just want to say.
But wait a minute, Don. To that point, if these people were mad because an old white man beat them in 2020, can you imagine what they're gonna do when Harris beats them now?
Yeah, but you add to it though, and you know, elections about choice and contrast. So just internalize this. You have JD Vance, who is the lead sponsor to eliminate DEI in federal government.
Yeah.
Is now going to have to spend the next 105 days with this black woman at the top of the ticket. Oh, I mean, it's a train wreck for them right now. And that's why yesterday we did something slightly different than the sisters. Our funds are going to be split. Yes, part of it, large part of it is going to go to Harris for president, but it's also about supporting black men-led organizations that are doing the work.
Yeah.
And so for Vote to Live, for Win with Black Men, for Black Men Vote, for Black Male Voter Project, for Democracy in Action, for Kairos Democracy Project, because at the end of the day, usually we don't get supported to do the work on the ground and are being asked 4 weeks before an election, go get black folk to show up. But you didn't help us for 3.5 years.
Right.
Last night has helped change that dynamic in a very immediate way.
Let's play this. There was a barn burner of a speech today, and I appreciate you joining us because I know it's busy, you're traveling. There was a barn burner of a speech, and I just want to play, this is something else from the vice president, obviously, who is running for president right now. Let's play the clip. This is her. This is Kamala Harris versus Donald Trump. Watch this.
I told you before I was elected vice president, before I was elected United States Senator, I was elected Attorney General of the state of California, and I was a courtroom prosecutor before then. And in those roles, I took on perpetrators of all kinds. Predators who abused women, fraudsters who ripped off consumers, cheaters who broke the rules for their own gain. So hear me when I say, I know Donald Trump's type.
I'm waiting, man, listen.
And in this campaign, I promise you, I will proudly put my record against his any day of the week.
That was good. Michael, go ahead. What do you think of that?
I'm waiting for the Not My Type t-shirts.
What did you say? Michael, I think you're muted. I think you're muted.
Michael, you're muted. You're muted.
We don't
He
have
just said
sound.
1 second. He said 1 second.
That's all right. Terrance, go ahead. What were you saying? You're waiting for what?
Yeah, look, I'm waiting. I love a speech that turns into merch. I'm waiting for the Not My Type, the Not My Type T-shirt. Right? Look, the president, the vice president has an opportunity here to really capture a message that I think has been frustrating a lot of Democrats, who are frustrated about the fact that we've had an incredible story of progress to tell, but we've had a hard time connecting that story. Frustrated about the fact that we are facing an incredible threat on the other side. We've had a hard time defining that threat. And I talked to a reporter this morning that said, look, the message hasn't been working. Why do you think changing the face is going to change them? Is going to change that? Well, what we see her doing is changing the message. She's changing the way we define the threat. As a prosecutor, I have prosecuted fraud. I've prosecuted sexual harassment. I've prosecuted. That's a different message about the threat, right? And so I think that's and then the last thing that any incumbent, because she's kind of running as an incumbent now, has to do, along with talk about their progress and talk about the threat of their opponent, they got to talk about their vision for the future.
So I had an interesting conversation with who happened to be a white man, and he said, "Oh, it's not going to be her. It's not going to be a Democrat. The Democrats need their version of Donald Trump because I see what's happening in cities. Crime is up." I said, "Well, actually, crime is down." He said, "But I see what's happening in these big cities, and it's just out of control." And then 2 minutes later, he said to me in the conversation, "And also, America doesn't want a prosecutor." And I said, well, what do you mean America doesn't want a prosecutor? You just told me that you're afraid of crime and that you think crime is bad. And I said, who do you think is going to handle the crime? You're contradicting yourself. I'm glad that she's leaning into the fact that she is a prosecutor because, she should lean into her resume. She's got a deep resume. She should not be afraid of it. But the record also, Michael, needs to be corrected on actually what she did as a prosecutor, because there's a lot of false information out there regarding black men, and it's just not true.
100%. Well, forgive my delay. I was muted earlier because I didn't want you to hear the airport announcements going on out here right now.
That's right.
So I think we've also, first, yes, the reality of her being a former prosecutor, given what her opponent has done and has been indicted and convicted of, creates incredible contrast. Second, we got to have incredible clarity. There's going to be a lot of folks who will be like, she did all these things when she was a DA. Actually, there's incredible data to show how she helped Black folk and communities of color. And so what we can't get caught up in is just the title of prosecutor does not mean that she is bad. And we get caught in that game. And then lastly, to something Terrance highlighted, we've now changed the narrative conversation that was truly slowing things down for the last 3+ weeks. Now you can't say the Democrats got the old person. Now you can't say I'm not really inspired by that. Now is that on their side? And so what do they have to say? I'm doing this and creating this narrative purely because they don't want Black folk to vote. That's it, fundamentally.
Yeah.
So let me just dive in here on the reason why this narrative works now. Her as a prosecutor.
Yeah, because you got research on that, right? You've been doing research on Black voters, right, Professor?
Yes, but what I'm saying is just at a 50,000 foot level, think about what was happening in 2020, right? For her to lean into the prosecutor narrative didn't serve her well, because given what was going on back then,
George Floyd.
Yes.
Black Lives Matter.
That's right. So that didn't really serve her well. But as Terrance said, given whom she's facing now, and now he's a convicted felon, this works perfectly. It's ideal, right? And I agree with what Michael Blake said, is that, there's this narrative out there that, Kamala was just locking Black folks up, and putting them away. But I think we need to counter that narrative. Right, because I think that was a drag on her candidacy the first time.
And look,
absolutely.
God, we actually have done some research on this, and we're doing some research on this, and in the absence of the truth, lies are allowed to fester.
Hey, Terrance, can you hold that thought? Because I want to talk about clearing up her record, but I just want you to hear from her because she's leaning into this top cop thing, and then I'm going to let you speak about it, Terrance. Here, let's play one more soundbite of her today.
As Attorney General of California, I took on one of our country's largest for-profit colleges that was scamming students. Donald Trump ran a for-profit college that scammed students. As a prosecutor, I specialized in cases involving sexual abuse.
Wow.
Well, Trump was found liable for committing sexual abuse.
Wow.
As Attorney General of California, I took on the big Wall Street banks and held them accountable for fraud. Donald Trump was just found guilty of fraud on 34 counts. But let's also make no mistake, this campaign is not just about us versus Donald Trump. This campaign is about who we fight for. This is about who we fight for. Just look at how we are running our campaigns. So Donald Trump is relying on support from billionaires and big corporations. And he is trading access in exchange for campaign contributions. A couple of months ago, you all saw that a couple of months ago at Mar-a-Lago, he literally promised big oil companies, big oil lobbyists, he would do their bidding for $1 billion in campaign donations. On the other hand, we are running a people-powered campaign. And we just had some breaking news. We just had the best 24 hours of grassroots fundraising in presidential campaign history.
Can I just say, I mean, Terrance, it's about damn time. It is about damn time. I respect the current president. Excuse me. I respect the current president. But as vice presidents often do, they get a bit overshadowed. We could have seen this a lot earlier. We didn't, but I'm glad I'm seeing it now. Go ahead, Terrance.
Yeah, that's right. Look, I've never questioned whether or not the president can still do this job. My question has always been, can he win this job? Can he do what she just did on that stage? Bring the case to the American people. And what Kamala, her first campaign for president, her slogan was Kamala for the people, because that's how she introduced herself when she walked into a courtroom. Kamala Harris for the people. And I think when we've seen Kamala at her best, when we've seen the vice president at her best, it was when she was prosecuting the case in those Senate hearings, when she got up on the edge of that seat and held Zuckerberg to the fire and held Kavanaugh to the fire. It's even when she, on a debate stage with the president, prosecuted the case against him. I was that little girl on that bus. And that's what we're getting to see her do again. That's prosecute the case for women's rights, prosecute the case to defend democracy. Someone's got to make a case against the Supreme Court and what kind of reforms we're going to have to do there to make that a valid governing body again. And finally, what I just saw her do in this clip is even prosecuting the case to defend the planet Earth. I mean, she got time, but she understands the assignment.
Yeah. So before we get to, does someone want to weigh in? No?
Just one thing of going back to this consistent language of prosecuting. It's also important that we're mindful, and I've heard this from several folks, and shout out to Jay Jordan and Angelo Pinto and others. Convicted felon can be very triggering to a lot of Black and brown men, right? And so how do we say justice impacted or yet to be incarcerated? That framing still achieves what we're trying to do. But let's be clear, they're saying this because they don't want us to show up.
Yes. And he's using that as saying, I'm relatable to people of color, or especially Black men, because I am also a convicted, or whatever he's saying. Go on.
Hey, just in case I don't get the chance to say this, I'm just going to say this now. She's going to kick his ass.
I know, right? That's what
so dumb.
I can't wait for a debate. She is. I cannot wait. But let's talk about this because Michael Blake, you mentioned the VP candidate on the other side, right? Talking about DEI, but then just talking about some weird shit. I don't know what's going on. I feel like he's out of his depth. This is what he said today. I don't know what he was talking about, but watch this.
This is great.
It is the weirdest thing to me. Democrats say that it is racist to believe, well, they say it's racist to do anything. I had a Diet Mountain Dew yesterday and one today. I'm sure they're going to call that racist too, but it's good. I love you guys. But
what is he talking?
Yeah.
You look at the current vice president, right? Look at her speech today, and then look at him. He wants to be vice president. But man, mediocrity, boy, it must be nice to be mediocre and be able to become a vice presidential candidate.
Well, let's finish that white male mediocrity. Let's finish.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, look, we got to be clear. We're watching a Sarah Palin moment. We're watching a witch in Delaware candidacy moment. I mean, this guy just got elected to Senate recently. Like he's never been at this kind of level. And however, though, let's be very clear. A critical reason why he was selected is they believe if they can just peel off enough votes in the Midwest, that their base is going to show up. So I'm going to keep saying these kinds of things because this is actually going to make sure our base shows up, and we don't trust that your base will show up. So yes, it's crazy what he's talking about for any of us that are rational people, right? But for those of the vote they're trying to lock in right now, that's totally aligned, and there's no coincidence in it. His pure bumbling on stage actually makes him relatable because he's saying racist things to voters that align with that.
Yeah, he's like us. He said, he's just okay. So now let's talk about this. This is important. You said we got Michigan, you got Wisconsin, you got Pennsylvania, you got North Carolina, Georgia, Arizona, and you said Nevada, right? Am I correct?
That's right. That's right.
Right. Okay. So we've had a couple of people, we've seen them out there making their case why they should be the vice presidential choice for the current vice president. And then now we have someone who's making getting their tryout on Morning Joe now, and that's Tim Walz. Let's listen to him, and then we'll talk about the possibilities of everybody else, and then I'll let you guys go. Here it is.
Is that people like JD Vance know nothing about small town America. My town had 400 people in it, 24 kids in my graduating class, 12 were cousins, and he gets it all wrong. It's not about hate. It's not about collapsing in. The golden rule there is mind your own damn business. Their policies are what destroyed rural America. They've divided us. They're in our exam rooms. They're telling us what books to read. And I think what Kamala Harris knows is bringing people together around the shared values, strong public schools, strong labor unions that create the middle class, healthcare that's affordable and accessible. Those are the things. You look what they're talking about. They went right to division. They did not give us a plan on healthcare. Donald Trump talked about infrastructure. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris built bridges, built roads. So I think this is going back to the bread and butter, getting away from this division. We do not like what has happened where we can't even go to Thanksgiving dinner with our uncle because you end up in some weird fight that is unnecessary. and I think bringing back people together, well, it's true. These guys are just weird. And it's, they're running for He-Man Women Haters Club or something. That's what they go at. That's not what people are interested in. And there is angst because robber barons like JD Vance and Donald Trump gutted the Midwest, told us we didn't do that. They talk about private schools. Where in the heck are you going to find a private school in a town of 400? Those are public schools. Those are great teachers that are out there making a difference and gave us an opportunity to succeed. That angst that JD Vance talks about in Hillbilly Elegy, none of my hillbilly cousins went to Yale, and none of them went on to be venture capitalists or whatever. It's not who people really are. So I think that message doesn't resonate. You saw it yesterday. The energy out here exploded. We all broke fundraising records, but that's not what I look at. Door knocks are full. Phone banks are full. People are talking about what's possible. We are finally on offense about an America where we're all together. So good. Have Orban down to Florida. The vice president will come out here and stand in a Planned Parenthood. She stands in a Planned Parenthood clinic in St. Paul. That's what people want to see.
Yeah. Well, listen, Tim Walz in Minnesota, you talk about folks in the middle of the country, right? That's a good message from him. So you have him, right? And let me just read off who it is, and then you guys can discuss. So the vice president her campaign has requested vetting materials from at least 7 Democrats under consideration to be her vice presidential running mate. Those being vetted for the job include North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper, right? Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, U.S. Senator Mark Kelly of Arizona, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, and Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker. And I think there are a couple of others. The Harris campaign also has requested vetting materials from Democrat whose name has received much less attention as vice presidential contender, and that's my friend and homeboy from Louisiana, Cedric Richmond, the former congressman from Louisiana, served as a top aide in the Biden White House and on his campaign. So, discuss. What do you think? Who's got the research? Where should it go? Mark Kelly brings Arizona. You said Beshear is out. Josh Shapiro brings Pennsylvania. And, so who do we got? I'll let you, Michael, you want to go or Terrance? Either one of you.
Well, look, I think. Look, I'll start where you ended.
Go for it, Mike.
I think Beshear is a fascinating candidate because when you look at what he's done in terms of restoration of rights for those that were formerly incarcerated, it actually fits with her message. Mm-hmm. And he's a 2-term Democratic governor from a Republican state out of the Midwest. Now, for the others, Tim Walz is a brilliant governor. He's also chair of the Democratic governors. I would be shocked to see that happen because, quite frankly, if we're in a zone where we're talking about Minnesota, at this stage, even though, yes, it was close before, I think that we got bigger issues here itself. I think fundamentally this probably becomes a Shapiro, Kelly, Beshear conversation for where those states may be itself. But I do think at the end of the day, I don't know of many voters who have ever made a practical decision of who they're voting for president because of a vice president.
Right.
Unless the vice president was such a disastrous person, right? And again, I think like the Palin example is one of those when people are just like, oh, hell no, we can't do that, right? Mm-hmm. So like, yeah, you're going to lock in and mobilize people within your state, but the last 48 hours, people aren't going to be like, man, more black men, more black women, like, man, I can't wait to go vote because of any of these people they talk about right now. They're showing up because of Kamala Harris.
Mm-hmm. I think I agree with most of that. Typically a VP candidate is trying to do one of 3 things. The first one is the most important, is do no harm. The second is to shore up a geographic gap. And the third is to shore up a demographic gap. I think considering those 3 things, JD Vance probably would not have been the nominee had Joe Biden made this decision a week prior, because he ain't really helping none of these things. But as far as Kamala Harris's decision, look, I think whoever wins Pennsylvania is probably going to be the next president of the United States. That's going to give Shapiro a whole lot of weight. But also Roy Cooper is a 2-term governor from North Carolina, another state, 16 electoral votes. Either one of those states, taking either one of those states off of Donald Trump's map makes his path very difficult.
So I wanted you last, Professor Parker.
I was about to say, they didn't leave any meat on these bones.
No. You got research. You got research, and I've got questions to ask you. So if you got Roy Cooper, who's in North Carolina, which would be an interesting choice. You have, and let me just throw some other stuff in here. If you've got Josh Shapiro, who is in Pennsylvania, and also I'm not sure what happens with Israel Gaza. Let's just be honest about that, right? Because then you have now you have a Jewish man on the ticket. And then if you go to Arizona, that helps the vice president possibly with immigration. And so people are looking at Mark Kelly saying, hey, that's amazing. But then Gretchen Whitmer, they're saying, well, listen, we need Michigan because of the support that Democrats have lost, or at least Joe Biden lost because of what's happening in Israel and Gaza. They don't believe that they supported Palestinians enough. So Gretchen Whitmer could help you with that. Gretchen Whitmer is also a woman. Josh Shapiro also is a minority as well. So they're saying, oh, that's too many firsts in one thing. I don't happen to believe in that. But I think it's whoever, brings the most to the table. I don't care if they're a woman or a man, but what do you make of this? And what do you make of this talk that it has to be a white man, Mr. Professor Parker?
Oh, man, I think it's pretty imperative that it's a white man. You cannot have 2 women. Like, I would love to see 2 women like on the ticket, right? But I just don't think it's practical, right? And adding another black person, like, I mean, no one mentioned Warnock. Like, he's not been on the short list, but like, he gets you Georgia, right?
Cedric Richmond.
Well, he's not Warnock, man.
I'm just saying. No, I'm mentioning another black person. I'm just saying.
Right. No, I hear you. I just think it's really risky to put, two minorities of any kind really on the same ticket at this point in history. I think Terrance and Michael are right. I mean, like, you have these reasons for picking it. Like, it's not going to be dispositive. Picking the right VP is not going to be dispositive when it comes to turning people out necessarily, but it can shore up a particular state, right? And I think to that extent, I think Shapiro would be great. Kelly, I'm not so sure about that. Like in Arizona, I mean, Pennsylvania is a much larger prize, and I think the consensus remains. I mean, I could be wrong, guys, but the blue wall, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, right? I think the path is much easier for Democrats going that route than trying to go any other routes. I mean, they could maybe add a southern state, but as Terrance said earlier, it could be the case that Kamala opens up more paths, right? Ultimately, that's an empirical question, and we'll be at work on that, trying to figure that out like real soon.
So look, I think you have a few other dynamics here. Don, you're absolutely right. Look, Shapiro, because of the dynamics of what's going on in Gaza, Michigan, when you look at that, there's going to be such intensity of brothers and sisters who are like, like, you putting us in this spot. Now, on the flip side, if we win and Shapiro is selected, then you have a black man who becomes governor in Austin Davis, who's lieutenant governor, right?
The same is true in Michigan. The same would be true in Michigan.
Now, Governor Whitmer has pretty directly said today, she was like, I wouldn't go. Now, I don't know if that's just good fodder or not, but she was pretty direct of like, I would not accept it if that's the case. I think the other dynamic here, though, is, and we haven't talked about Governor Westmore, who I think of any of the black candidates probably have the most chance of being selected, even though I agree with Chris, Warnock would be incredible. But for any of them who have thoughts of wanting to run for president down the line, a Shapiro, a Whitmer, etc., they need to win their state anyway. Anyway, like, they can't lose their states. And so I do think it gives some flexibility for her, being the vice president, to branch out a little bit otherwise. And that's why I think, to the Cooper point about North Carolina, which has been the state that the campaigns felt most confident about, and being the swing state move, at Kelly. But again, I'm going to go back. There's a reason why Andy Beshear was doing TV yesterday, and they did say that he has submitted vetting documents as well. You achieve what Chris was just saying around Midwest. You, quite frankly, inspire the rest of them to keep going after it in their states. And you have someone who, like Cooper, was an AG that she knows from her AG days. And so there's those other dynamics that are at play here that will move quickly. And equally, just from a shout out, as for Black Men Pride for a second, the fact that the vice president chose AG Holder to lead the vetting process, like, it's just like, there's just like black man joy going on right now everywhere these last 36 hours.
Okay, so just real quickly, what about what about an out of the box? And maybe I'm crazy, but I've heard people say there needs to be someone who's out of the box, and maybe it could be a celebrity type. Who owns the Miami team? Mark, what's his face? Mark Cuban. What about a Mark Cuban?
Don, stop. Come on now. Come on.
All right. I'm just saying. All right.
What you doing?
Now, all right. Good. I'm just saying, because they're saying Donald Trump is a celebrity and whatever. Listen, real quick before I let you guys go, I just got some polling from my former colleague over at CNN, Harry Hinton, and he says JD Vance is making history as the least liked VP nominee non-incumbent since 1980. Following his or her party's convention, he is the first to have a net negative favorable rating. Who was it said that would have said if this had happened before the convention that he would not be? Was that you, Terrance, who said that?
Yeah, that's right. I'm also not certain he's gonna remain.
Are you serious?
No, that's real talk.
I'm very serious.
For what we have seen the last 72 hours, that is very real.
That's right. Donald Trump has now seen the value of shaking shit up. He has seen it. He understands the ratings and TV and showmanship of it. JD Vance is not adding anything to this ticket. He's the product of white mediocrity. There's a lot of options over there that can give Donald Trump some access to voters that he may not have otherwise had. I would not be surprised if he's not at least asking lawyers, is it possible?
So two quick things on that. One, now this was a joking meme, but I thought it was brilliant. The timing of what President Biden did, which is quite frankly one of the selfless things that anyone's ever done in politics, he made the Republicans attack him for 4 straight days last week. So now they almost lost their convention energy because they didn't attack who's the actual nominee, right?
That's right.
Done. And then number 2, for JD, they said their strategy out loud already. They said they chose him because they could put him in Midwestern states and camp out there. However, Black folk who are paying attention right now, they see a man who was anti-DEI and they hear Project 2025 and they're like, oh yeah, no, absolutely not. This is complete nonsense here. And so I think for many reasons, Donald Trump is probably thinking, what the hell did I just do?
Well, one more observation real quick. And I don't know if any of you guys would admit to this, but after the assassination, you know, given the current state of things, I'm like, shit, he's really gonna win this shit, right? Yeah, right. But now you switch the whole dynamics. You put Kamala in here. That and Trump pretty much he really messed off whatever goodwill he had. Goodwill, you know, when he went off the rails on his speech, and now you get Kamala in here and using this prosecutor narrative against the felon. Done. Done.
He took that Band-Aid off real quick. Okay, so listen, this is the last thing on that. I just want to know, can Republicans just not help themselves? Can they just not be racist? This is according to Politico.
Nope.
House Republican leaders told lawmakers to focus on criticizing Vice President Kamala Harris's record without referencing her race and gender, following offensive remarks from some Republicans attacking her on the basis of of her identity. During a closed-door meeting on Tuesday morning, chair of the House GOP campaign arm, Richard Hudson, a Republican from North Carolina, and others, issued a warning after a series of comments by their members that focused on Harris's race, as well as claims that she is a DEI pick. That's according to 2 people in the room. Can they just not be racist? I guess they think it's helping them.
But they can't. And I think this is important from a language and a policy standpoint, because it's not just that they're prejudicial. Racist is that they want to institutionalize this stuff. So like they actually can't, because they truly believe that these policies should be the case, right? So like you're trying to tell folks, yo, walk back what you campaigned on, what you believe, what you say at rallies, what you did at a convention. They can't. They actually can't, because not only do they feel it in their bones, they institutionally want to see this happen. Because again, we go back to, of all the people Donald Trump could have selected, he picked the man who is the lead sponsor to eliminate DEI. That's right. So the framing of like, well, we stop talking about race. Y'all been doing this the whole time. Y'all, you were doing this when you went after Central Park 5. You went after this. Mike Johnson, who was clearly the one that was talking about the insurrection and tried to be quiet about it. This is who they are. Let's not be confused about it. And let's not be playing games by the fact that these cats don't give a damn about anything except if you are a straight white man showing up to vote for them.
So how do you think like Trump won and beat all these conventional Republican candidates to begin with in 2016? You know, you got to dance with who brung you, right? And it's racism, sexism, homophobia, xenophobia that got them to fuck to this point, right? They can't help it, right? Both from a practical perspective and an ideological perspective. As Mike said, it's the institutional piece, but there's also the social psychological piece.
I'm going to start with you.
And they're trying to divide us. They're trying to make the narrative of, the narrative of like, these immigrants are taken from you. Right. So even in the framing of like all crime is bad, everything like that. Well, they taking your shit. Well, who's the they? I was in the car a week ago where this brother, black man, probably late 60s, who said to me, He was like, these immigrants took a bank job in my local neighborhood. I was like, let me tell you something right now. They first of all, I don't know what bank you at, but that didn't happen. Like you just lying to yourself that someone just showed up and just took the job that no one else could have. But it's the narrative of it. So Don, to your question, this is why we talk about it in Kairos, like the storytelling of this. They can't and they won't because they think this is a winning strategy.
Yeah. And it has worked for them. So I'm gonna the last word. I want parting words from everyone. And then I'm going to tell you how I feel about each of you. Terrance, your parting words.
Look, I agree with my brothers here. I'm going to just answer the last question as a parting word. That is, there's another reason why they cannot get away from racism as a Republican Party, and that's because there is no more Republican Party. There is one man, and then the rest of that party is amplifying him. The Republicans can't stop because Donald Trump can't stop. And this black woman prosecuting a case against him. I mean, people are talking about him avoiding the debate. I'm like, do you understand what's going to happen if Kamala Harris goes on TV every day and says he's scared to debate me? He's going to take the bait. And that's why they can't stop. She represents everything that he hates. He's going to attack her, and they're going to amplify that hate.
Yeah, she's going to eviscerate him, or she can just stand there and let him attack her. It's a winning strategy, no matter how you play it. Christopher, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with Terrance. I mean, like, I can't wait to see him debate her because, like Terrance said, he's not going to be able to resist it because he already underestimates her. He's going to think to himself, despite the advice, I'm sure, from many of his advisors, don't do this, right? Yeah. It is a fool's errand. He's going to do it because he thinks he's smarter and better than her and superior to her. So he's going to do it. And beyond that, I'm just happy to be alive and be in the position that I am to see this, right? To be a part of this and to witness this, right? A black woman coming to kick the dog shit out of a white man, not only publicly in the United States, but the whole world is watching this.
Yeah. Well, let me just say this before you speak, Honorable Michael Blake. I was so moved by what you guys did last night. And I just wanted to thank you. I want to thank Bakari. I want to thank everybody who was involved. Roland and I have had our, issues. You know how Roland is. But I love the message that Bakari said. We come at this from different perspectives, right? But we all want the same outcome, and we all want unity. We're all our brothers here of different shades and whatever, but we all want the same thing, and we all have very similar experiences. So I'm just saying to you, I'm happy that you were one of the organizers. I'm so proud of you guys for doing this. And so thank you for keeping the momentum. And I hope this continues to spread and continues for black men to coalesce, for us to come together with each other, with brotherhood. So I'll give you the last word, Michael Blake.
Brother Don, I appreciate you and for saying that. And Terrance and Chris, thank y'all for everything. Last night was spiritually beautiful. Yeah. It was invigorating. It was, it was this generation's Million Man March. I do feel that, right? From the energy that's sustained from it, because we rallied around something we were excited about. We weren't coming together because someone got shot.
Yeah.
Right. Someone got arrested because something bad happened. It was like, no, like we actually excited about this, and we feel a responsibility to do something here. And so when we think about the irony of what the next 105 days is going to be, Donald Trump has spent his career literally trying to use the courts to shame black people. Literally, his whole life, didn't let black folk get access to housing, Central Park 5, et cetera, et cetera. Then what he did against Fonnie in Georgia, what he tried to do against Tish in New York. And now this is going to be that moment where us as brothers get to say, you know what? Yeah, we're real clear about how this is going to go down. There's no confusion about this. And we're going to keep it going. So to your point, Wednesday, we have Kairos conversations every Wednesday. Sundays, you're going to see When With Black Men calls. Khalil Thompson's going to be leading that. Sneak peek, There will be a notable announcement that's going to happen on Thursday of a new initiative that's about to get launched. So y'all need to check out all of our different platforms for that. Collective is going to have a massive event August 22nd in Chicago at Soldier Field. And then our whole piece with Kairos Democracy Project, we're going to be lining things up for the rest of the election to say to brothers, you're welcome here. And to the final piece on this itself, you know, I was there in 06 with Obama. I was trained by him and started with them in 07 and 08. Last night in the last 48 hours has been a feeling similar to that.
I agree.
Of people like, yo, there's something bigger happening here. And we refuse to allow her to lose.
So listen, I need to get your schedule and everything you're doing. So please give that to my producer so that we can. I want to try amplify as much as I can with my platform. But I just want to give a shout out to Roland S. Martin. Roland, it was a great job what you did last night. Quentin James, Bakari Sellers, Khalil Thompson, the Honorable Michael Blake. Also Westmore, who spoke, and all of the other folks who were there last night. And to you, Professor Christopher Sebastian Parker and Terrance Woodbury. Thank you, brothers. I'm proud of you. I love you. I'll see you soon. You guys can click off. Safe travels to you, Michael Blake. I appreciate it. And we'll have you back. We're going to continue to do this. Thank you so much. All right. I'm just going to talk to my subscribers. You guys click out and I'll see you soon. So subscribers, thank you very much, Lemon Nation, for joining us today. What a fascinating conversation. You don't get this everywhere. You don't get this on cable news. You get this right here. And so what a great conversation to talk about. And I got to tell you, the momentum just over the last 48 or so hours has just been just phenomenal. And I can tell you now, because I'm in independent media, another Donald Trump presidency would be batshit crazy. We would be crazy for that. And so I believe in democracy. And I think the best way for us to keep our democracy is to do what we're doing now, what we talked about on this broadcast. So I can be honest and I can tell you that. So that's complete transparency. You know where I stand. And make sure you guys hit the thumbs up. We have a lot of people watching. You know, guys don't always hit the thumbs up. You got us to where we wanted on the subscribers. We started, I think, when I got off when I said we're getting close to 200,000, that night we were 202,000, and now we're at 205,000. So thank you for subscribing. Thank you for helping build Elimination Lemonheads. I appreciate it. If you have any questions, if you want to know anything, put it in the chat. But awesome show, right? I agree with you, Lynn McClary. What a really awesome show. Please hit the thumbs up, says Lauren Vibe. Yes, absolutely. Don you're the best. Thank you. I really appreciate that. I'm not the best, you're the best, but this is why I said, no ma'am, 4.1K, Don, 205K subs. Amen. We had 300 or 400, I forget how many people, almost 400,000 people who watched last night's broadcast. Just fantastic. I agree with Don. I agree, Don. Tell the truth. Cheryl Monk, you have to tell the truth. I just can't give you, let me tell you something too, I'm going to be transparent about. I can't always, I hate it when you guys get upset when you are like, why are you saying that? You shouldn't be saying that or whatever. I have to give you guys the truth, okay? So I told you about what was happening with Joe Biden, and now here we are, all right? So just know that I'm telling you the truth about that and that you need to know. Here's the other thing. When I worked in traditional television, we talked about Donald Trump so much. We talked about MAGA so much. We got to understand the MAGA voters. We got to understand this voters. And we didn't hear a lot about us. And so now, this time, we get to do that as my dogs are barking because they're ready to eat. So that's what you're going to get. I'm going to try to give you as little of Donald Trump. I got to cover him, but we can't underestimate him. But we're not going to, what I'm saying is we're not going to over-index on it. So you guys have a great evening. I'm going to see you tomorrow, and I'm sure there'll be some big developments that we have to discuss. So have a good night. Barkley is barking. That's his name. So thank you for supporting independent media. Thank you, Lemonheads, Lemon Nation. I'll see you tomorrow. Have a good and safe evening. Oh, the president is speaking tomorrow night at 8 o'clock, and we will have a show around that, okay? So stay tuned. Look to the community section. Look to social media. All right. Have a good one. Bye-bye.